All right. Welcome back to the Overtalk podcast. It has been a lot of time. It's actually been 2 months. It kind of flew by. But we're back. We kind of had a little bit of a change in background for both of us, as I'm sure you guys can see. I have moved across the country, and we're gonna get into all of that. But big week for Overwatch. We're gonna talk about the season 4 new hero and all the changes. We're going to talk about the invitational tournament that went on this week, and we're going to talk about just what's been up with us. And then yeah, it's going to be a little bit shorter today because Cupcake here is sadly, or sorry, Aramori here is sadly recovering from a bout with COVID. So we're gonna let's go ahead and get right into it. Aramori, what's been up with you? You can go ahead and kick us off with what's been going on.
Well, for me, like you said, I've been dealing with some illness. I unfortunately earlier this week I got really sick with COVID, so I've been dealing with that, and it's been awful. I don't recommend. 0 out of 10. Actually, it might be a pandemic.
Maybe.
But
I think I've heard of it actually.
potentially, and it seems like it's going around again. So I would just say be careful, take care of yourself. Be thoughtful when you're leaving the house and don't lick your fingers, Don't do that. Just not good, okay? I actually got sick going to go see the new Mario movie, which was pretty good.
Oh,
It's pretty good. It
that
was maybe
that
worth
movie's
it.
huge. That movie is huge. I haven't seen it yet. Is it really worth a watch?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, it definitely is like for kids, but like it was still like fun. Like, I enjoyed myself. It was fun going to the movies. Is it worth getting sick for like pretty much the whole week? Maybe not. But Jack Black, he put his whole heart and soul into playing Bowser, so that was really cool to see.
Really?
Mm.
Yeah, that's he seemed excited to do it. But Japan, he puts his heart and soul into like everything. That doesn't really
That's
surprise
true.
me.
Yeah, I heard him
Um,
say somewhere that he like turned down a bunch of roles and stuff so he could like do the stuff like he really wants to do. So that makes sense.
yeah. As for me, I'm actually surprised I didn't get sick from traveling. Because I was in two different airports, well, three different airports, and then had two 4 hour long flights where I was like, both of the flights were like jam packed. It
Yeah.
was I actually got lucky because someone had to volunteer to not take that one of the flights because it was so packed for some reason or another. But um, yeah, it was a crazy day of traveling, and I didn't even get like a cold from it. But when I got to, my boss's house where I was, that's kind of the temporary living situation. His kids got me sick immediately. Um, so first week here, I landed. I was perfectly fine for a couple days. Then after a couple days, I was like playing with the kids or whatever because they were like, "Oh, new person," and then got sick immediately. And since then, I've just been trying to get everything all set up. You can see, like, I'm in my office now. If you guys can't really tell by the background, I don't know how it's looking right now, but yeah, I'm in my office now, and that's pretty much been the whole thing is like getting established out here, and that's why the content has kind of slowed to a halt for a little bit because I've been getting used to the California lifestyle. If you can't tell, I look very Californian now. I'm
Yeah,
fully sunk
super
into it.
California.
I'm fully sunk into. I've started drinking energy drinks, which are bad for me. I've lost a bunch of weight though. Gonna throw that out there. I did lose 20 pounds, in like 3 weeks to a month, so that's pretty crazy.
Nice.
Um, but that's also because I have to walk like 15,000 steps a day now because I'm just like I'm running
Mhm.
all over the place, showing houses, walking people back and forth, going to the car, going here, going there, all kinds of stuff. But anyway, yeah, so that's what's been up with us. I am really excited to get back into the podcast here. First thing we're going to talk about is actually going to be the Lifeweaver tournament. So Lifeweaver did come out this past week with season 4. I think it was season 4 started on the 13th, right? Like 5 days
Yeah,
ago.
really
Yeah,
recently, yeah.
so it started like 5 days ago. Lifeweaver came out and they had a like as a little promotional thing. They did a creator invitational tournament with a bunch of creators and Overwatch League pros and all kinds of stuff. Um, the winner of which was Team SK, right? Did you catch any of the finals?
I unfortunately did not, but I do know that it was just crazy. Like, it was pretty like wacky to even just like think about because Lifeweaver's abilities are just so different than anything else that we have in Overwatch 2, right? So far. Um so just like the plays with like the platforms, and I've seen so many content creators just doing crazy things where like a Lifeweaver will like go up on the platform and then like their cast will high noon and they'll just like pull them, and they figured out some sort of like slingshot mechanic where he like goes flying past the platform and like into the air
Whoa,
or
really?
something. Yeah, it's so funny.
I haven't seen that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like something where if you are pulled as Cass onto the platform and you roll at the same time, you just get like
Hmm.
slingshotted for whatever
That's awesome.
reason. So
You're like a helicopter high noon though for a second.
yeah. Yeah, there was
That's
one
insane.
on TikTok that got like it was like 250,000 likes when I saw it, where somebody did that over like the gap on Eichenwald's second on the bridge, and
Hmm.
he slingshotted over, killed 5 people, and then fell into the pit and died. It
Damn,
was
dude.
so funny.
That's sweet. That's a cool play though.
Yeah. Yeah,
Reminds me of
so
Genji Ledge Dash, but
yeah, way back. But yeah, so it's
mhm.
just so different from anything that we, have currently in Overwatch like this. I don't think maybe it's comparable to like Sims teleporter, but it just really is completely unique. So it's kind of opening a lot of different play styles, at least in my opinion. So it was cool to see like people experiment and try things with that.
Yeah, and we'll come back to Lifeweaver here in a second. I wanted to ask you a question because this was like when I was writing up the plans for all of our topics today. It
Mhm.
just kind of popped in my head. Do you think that for Overwatch, for the competitive scene of Overwatch, that invitational tournaments are a good idea? And but let me just preface like why I'm asking this because in general it's like yeah, tournaments are great for a game, right? But I wanted to ask this because Overwatch has been renowned for having like no opportunities for competitive players or for like the random player outside of like open division, which doesn't even pay really, right?
Mhm.
That's been a consistent problem over the years that they've recently started to try to reapproach with like, letting tier 2 do like the pro am tournaments or whatever and like having more tournaments outside of Overwatch League. Um, but do you think it's a good idea to even have invitationals in Overwatch when, if you're not a creator, I mean, you're pretty much gonna not make anything?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what the like goal of the tournament is. So if I'm Blizzard and I really want to like showcase this new hero, and I'm thinking, okay, what are the best ways to really grab the community's attention? I don't think it would make a lot of sense to do like an open tournament. It would make more sense to do like an invitational style, which is what they ended up doing, and kind of like being like J3 is gonna be here, and Emong and Aspid and like all these names that they're familiar with, and they're like, oh my god, yeah, I want to see my favorite creators play against each other, um, and also like promote this new hero and promote the new season, right? So I think it really just depends on like what your goal is. I know a lot of like if you're doing like a charity tournament, or if you're doing like a tournament for the sake of like competitiveness, then I don't think it really makes sense to do like an invitational only. But if you are like trying to promote something, I think it makes sense. But in terms of like overall health for the game and like prize pools, no, it doesn't feel great to see this big tournament with a bunch of like good players being put on, and you don't even get to attempt to play in it. However, I think it does make sense that Blizzard would do it that way. um but maybe, they should give some of those funds into Path to Pro, please. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
that's kind of like That's kind of where my head is at too. Is it's like, I come from, and I've talked a little bit about this in the podcast before. I kind of have a foot in both camps
Mm-hmm.
background, right? Where at one point I was a pro player, and then I went on to be a pro coach, and then I went on to do content, right? So on one hand, it's like, yeah, I definitely understand why they. I understand it from Blizzard's perspective 100% with a tournament like this. It's definitely better to promote a hero by doing like a content creator invitational. It's just going to draw more viewers. It makes total sense, right? But more so, what I'm thinking is it's like, okay, but content creators already are making, depending on the size, obviously, but they're already
Mm-hmm.
making money, right? They already make money just by playing, right? So the competitive players, they don't make money just by playing. They have to be either sponsored or they have to be winning tournaments, right? So it's kind of a point where it's like, for the overall health of the game, what about, like, do we just forget about the people who are putting in all the hours to get better and better that aren't doing it on stream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where that's how it kind of looks, right? It's like, okay, well, we have all these $10,000 invitationals for content creators, and then we have pro am tournaments, which it's like Overwatch League players and
Mm-hmm.
amateur players, right? There are all these people that are already getting paid to play. What about the people who need a chance, right? Which is a big thing with Overwatch because you can't get kicked out of Overwatch League. You can't lose your team slot in Overwatch League, right?
Right.
If you go to like Counter Strike or something, right? A totally random team could, in theory, they usually don't, but they could go from qualifiers to the invitational to like winning, right? But you're not gonna have like a team of 6 people who just get together one day and just go all the way up to win Overwatch League, right? It just doesn't happen because you can't push that spot into the league. So it's just that's kind of what I was. That's kind of where my head was like going. Is it's like, what about the people who do just want to grind? They don't want to go and stream it all the time. They just want to head down, focus on being the best player. Like, where's the balance? I guess is what I was the purpose of asking
Yeah,
that.
and I could definitely see, like, I definitely feel like Blizzard putting on tournaments like this is a good step in the right direction. But maybe something that we could see too is, instead of, these content creators drafting, pro players, it could be, oh, well, let's draft players from tier 2 and, under, or maybe like tier 3 and under or something, right? To kind of like elevate and give those players a platform. However, I will say I don't think that those could do is good for like viewership in terms of like promoting something. But if they wanted to do it for competition and like, trying to build their scene, that's definitely like an idea and a step in the right direction for sure.
I would actually argue that you'd be surprised how much like just like general competition can drive viewership, right? Like, yeah, for the first like few tournaments, it might be less viewers because you're competing against content creators who already have established audiences, right? But like Counter Strike, for example, not all the pro players stream. A lot of them do, but a lot of the invitationals or like the grand finals in Counter Strike get like 1 to 2.5 million viewers,
Wow.
right? And that's because the sense of competition within the game itself is that strong, right? It doesn't matter if it's like XQC is playing or whatever. It's like it's just the grand finals. Like, I just want to watch it because it's the grand finals, right? Because it's like, oh, Astralis and this team made it. I'm not trying to delve too much into Counter Strike because this is an Overwatch podcast, but I'm just like using that as an example, right? It's like that sense of competition in that game is so strong that you can have grand finals that will pull 2 to 3 million concurrent viewers, right? So it's like, on one hand, yeah, it's like I totally agree. Promotion makes sense with Overwatch to go with content creators, but I also feel like if you sort of nurtured that competitive environment more, you would get more
Oh,
viewers. I
for
mean,
sure.
look at Overwatch League Season 1 and like the Apex tournaments from back in the day. I mean, they got plenty of viewers, right?
Yeah.
But
Something
as
else to kind of like add to that too, like in terms of just viewership, was there was some, I think it was collegiate was going on this week. And well,
mhm,
I wasn't able to catch any of it. I'm kind of been under the weather this week, right? Just
sure.
but I do know that the viewership was comparable or even more than the pro am that was a couple weeks ago. And that was simply because, well, one, it was on Twitch, right? And two, it was because they were offering rewards for viewers to watch. So there was like I think like a contender skin that was available, and the
Hmm.
numbers were like upwards of 30K on Twitch the entire time. And so it's like,
Yeah.
this is collegiate, right? Which normally I think without incentives like gets around like 2,000, maybe less
Yeah. A
viewers or
couple
something.
thousand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great, right? But all of a sudden, right, it's super hype now. There's spam in the chat, people are freaking out, and it's close to like 30K viewers like all the time.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's something
Yeah.
they're doing right, and they need to keep doing, because even if people are just there to get the rewards, right, they're engaging with the chat, they're building a community, right, they're seeing like, oh, maybe this is actually kind of interesting, right, like they might click for the rewards, but they're staying for the actual
For
content.
the yeah. Hmm. Absolutely. 100%. But it's just a little interesting topic I wanted to quickly delve into. I forgot to set a timer here. But just something I wanted to quickly dive into. So let's switch gears here and let's go into talking about the season 4 stuff, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's return back to Lifeweaver, right? He's out now, right? For starters.
Yeah, he is.
How have you seen? Because you do. Have you been scrimming this week? I know you said you've been sick and stuff, but
So Calling Out Heroes does not have him in their tournament, which is this weekend. So I have not personally
Mhm.
been scrimming any Lifeweaver. However, I do have some insider Overwatch League um I don't know, information. Yeah,
Mhm.
the information is that he sucks and nobody's playing him.
That's what I've heard too. Yeah, that's what I've
Yeah.
heard too. So let me ask you then, what about him do you think is so bad? What do you think
So
needs to change?
yeah, so thank you for asking. As a support player, I appreciate that. But so his abilities are fine, right? There's no issue with the platform. There's no issue with the pull, right? It's fine. The issue lies in the fact that his actual numbers are too underwhelming. Like, just they're just too low compared to some of the other heroes, compared with his survivability, which is kind of right? It's
Mhm.
just not worth it to try to run him. So, um, the way that his healing works right now is it's a charge where you hold it to increase the numbers, and at the very minimum you can just like spam out. It's 10 healing per little blossom,
Mhm.
and then when you hold it, and I think it's like a half second charge or maybe a full second, it is 65 as the maximum. Now, for context, Anna does 75 HP per bullet, and she's able to just like rapid fire, like send those out, right? So when you have
Mhm.
to spend a full second charging this blossom that's only 65, it's not even a full Ana shot, and it's only single target, and it's kind of like a slower moving projectile, you get you fall behind a lot, right? So he can't take the place of an Ana or a Bap or a Moira, right? He just does not put out that same amount of healing. But at the same time, right, like he also just doesn't do enough damage, and he also has to choose between one or the other, which is kind of what has always made supports good, right? Or the good supports good is they don't have to choose. Like if you think about Zen, right, he can constantly be doing healing and damage. He can constantly be putting out his Discord orbs at the same time that he's doing damage, right? And it's the same thing with Ana, right? It takes her half a second to just like move her crosshair onto a different target, and then now she's doing damage, right? So he's not able to. I mean, if you're really goated, if you're really good at Lifeweaver, you can quickly swap in between. I've seen some crazy things, but that is hard. That is a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to manage. So it's just really difficult to get value from him, and I think that's where a lot of people are struggling. They just they just can't get value, and if they do, it's like they have to be sweating, like working a full like 9 to 5 hour job trying to make this character work, when it's just gonna be easier to play, like Ana Lucio, or like I've even seen Brig being played, honestly, a lot more. So yeah,
Yeah,
his
100%.
numbers, dude, they're just not
100%.
good.
And honestly, I think this is like a symptom of, and I think I've also talked about this before in the podcast, but I think it's just a symptom of like a greater problem that has been plaguing Overwatch for forever now, and that's just constant inflation of numbers, right?
Yeah.
Damage, mitigation, and healing. All of them have been super inflated since the start of Overwatch, right? I mean, when you think about it, like season one, I pretty distinctly remember Soldier being like one of the highest like sustained damage dealers in the game, right? Which now is it's like you could play Hanzo and do more damage, Junkrat, Pharah probably do more spam damage. Like all these characters do way more spam damage, or you have characters who have better pick potential as well, right? And then you have healers where it's like at the start it was Zen, Lucio, Mercy. For like
Yeah.
Mercy was like the best
And
healer.
Sim.
Yeah, well, support, right? Yeah, but like Mercy was like the best healer, and then Ana came out, right? And you know, Ana, I've always been a little bit on the fence about Ana. I've always felt like she's got too much in her kit, right? Too
Mhm.
many S tier abilities between Nano, between Sleep, and between Nade, all being like potentially fight winning, and then also her healing being hit scan or being able to strafe and do it in close range too. I think she has a lot in her kit, and then when I zoom back in and realize, oh, it's 2023, characters like Kiriko and Baptiste exist. I'm like, man, Ana's not so bad, but it's really all bad. Like in my opinion, they just all have too much going on. I wish we had more abilities that are like Lifeweavers, like the pull and the like uh what's it called? Something blossom, like the thing that makes
Yeah.
the high ground, right? I forget the names of the abilities, but the thing that makes the high ground, right? I want more abilities like that. You know, that is a really good ability without needing any number contribution at all, right? It doesn't like, oh, now he does 100% more healing, or now his teammates are just straight up invincible. Like, you don't need like
Yeah.
things that warp the numbers extremely to make a intriguing ability, right?
Mhm.
Like Maywall's in the same boat, right? But like, look at how many cool plays there are with Lifeweaver's like platform, right? I wish there was more stuff for support to do that was in that vein,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's warping the map or whether it's giving like speed buffs like Lucio or general like other
Yeah,
buffs, right?
like support
Heal a
things,
bunch.
not healer
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, like heal a bunch and also do as much damage as a DPS, right? Like that's
Right.
it doesn't need to be like that, right? Why is it that when I approach BAP on DPS in a 1v1, I'm like, oh, I gotta sweat, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I
good
have to
luck.
warm up, I have to like strafe. It's like, why do I need to do that? And then if I do headshot him, he just looks at the ground and now he's got a floating disc that I have to break where he's like literally unkillable. And most of the
Yep.
time you just have to be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna back out of this 1v1. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
he's got two abilities where he can just live forever. He's got his lamp, right, that you have to break, and then
mhm.
if you break that, then he's got his shift that instantly gives him like what 50 HP or something like that. It's like 100 HP. So good luck.
Yep. Or you approach Kiriko and it's like, oh, she just threw 2 shots at me and killed me like she was Cassidy or
Oh yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like I feel like support has just gotten way too do everything kind of vibe where it's like do a ton of healing, do a ton of damage, and have like impossibly good damage mitigation, right?
right.
And I think if we start winding down support and then wind down damage a little bit, like for both tank and DPS, the game will get slower, but we'll also have more room to have more interesting characters like Lifeweaver come into play, right? We'll have more options for people to make bigger plays that require teamwork,
Hmm.
right? I mean, could you imagine if League had a character that could just suddenly one shot like tanks and like that, right? How much different League of Legends would be, or like anything like that. And I think there's just like we've gotten to a point where numbers are just way too inflated, and we need to take a step back and just start drawing everything back a bit. And
I
it
have a
might be
counterpoint.
unrealistic, but
I
okay.
like how fast the game is. My my concern is like if we were to do that in like a hypothetical and like kind of like move everything down, the game would be too slow and I'd be bored.
But if you brought healing back, you wouldn't be slowing things down. You'd just be making it less ridiculous. You wouldn't need stuff like immortality. You wouldn't need stuff that literally removes all damage like Matrix or like Sigma's like Flux
Mm.
or like Suzu. You wouldn't need abilities that make you literally invincible for brief periods of time to avoid burst damage. You would be able to have just like more positioning oriented gameplay. I mean, this is gonna probably fly over a lot of people's heads, but my background before I played Overwatch was Team Fortress 2,
Mm.
right? And that game, honestly, when you played it competitively, felt faster than Overwatch, but has 1/4 of the characters and like 100 times less like abilities and like all kinds of stuff, but it still felt faster, right? And the reason why is because you have less stalling in the fights. It's more about like, okay, I can go in, and if I'm just a beast, I can start two-shotting people, right? Or if someone hits good shots on me, they can me up too, right? And that's just kind of I wish it was like less about just like I wish there was more room for individual play, and I wish there was
Mm.
more room for creative abilities in the game that aren't just oh, do a lot of damage, oh, do a lot of healing, oh, make someone invincible, right? Which is like what a lot of characters have when you really think about it. So anyway, that's we can both have different opinions on that topic, right? And that's something that's always going to be a talking point in Overwatch, especially for people who played way back in the day. But anyway, so aside from Lifeweaver coming out for season 4, I'm gonna keep us moving here,
Mhm.
because like I said, this is gonna be a slightly shortened podcast. We're shooting for 45 minutes instead of an hour today. Ryan got a slight nerf. Not really too much to talk about. I mean, they reduced his health by 25, I think, or was it 50? I think it was
Mm,
25.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, they reduced his health very slightly. Okay, I don't think it's going to change all that much about him, really. This I found interesting. Sigma's one shot got removed. His rock now
Hmm.
stuns for longer, but doesn't do as much damage. What do you think about that?
I think that's nice because I don't know. I just feel like it was completely random to just get like one shot by like a sig, like, and it kind of felt like you were helpless. Like he'd hit you, or what it was like he'd hit you with like his left click, and then he'd rock you, and then he hit you again, and you would just die. And it was just like cool. That's really
I mean, you
cool.
would just just the rock and a left click would one shot you. I'm pretty sure do like almost your whole health. I mean, if you
Yeah,
took damage from anywhere else, you'd be dead for sure. But
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
So I feel like giving tanks abilities that CC more is not a huge deal. Like it feels almost like deserved, especially with Sig's rock. Like that's something that can be like shielded off. Like um, he has to like aim it. It's like a projectile. I feel like that's deserved. So it
Mhm.
having like a longer stun feels more natural to me. And I haven't noticed like a huge change in game, except for the fact that like Sigs aren't trying to just one shot me, which is hey, fine by me.
Yeah, I agree. I think I honestly this is a hot take, but I think we do need a little bit more CC in the game.
That is a hot
Just
take.
not a lot, a little bit. Um, there's some things that just like get out of hand with tank. And I don't mean CC like on a sleep dart because that also got nerfed, which is
It
good.
did.
But we'll circle back to that. But just like generally more like minute, like just like breathing room CC, I guess is the best way to describe it. Like half of a cast flashbang, something that's like enough to disrupt someone without like being like, oh well, my shield fell, and now I'm just gonna die immediately because there's a million damage coming in, right?
Mhm.
I do think there needs to be a little bit more CC so that you can have some characters that are able to like
Yeah.
evade things and
And
make people
and I
think
think
more.
Blizzard is kind of going in that route too because if you think about um like the I know we're going to get to it but the brig changes of,
Mhm.
she can now stun shield bash which was in Overwatch 1 and stun people in her ultimate. That is kind of like they're not giving it to her, the way it used to be, but she does have a little bit more control. I think you're right in that sense that it does feel nice to have it sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it doesn't need to be a huge stun, right? Which
Mhm.
was like my main complaint with Sleep Dart was that it's like, dude, if you don't, I mean, yeah, obviously when you're in lower ranks, you have to deal with people who are like, "Oh, I woke the sleeping target," right? But like, once you get past that threshold, it goes from being like a brief stun to like, "Wow, I'm pretty much just out of the fight for like the most important 5 seconds of the fight," right? It can be a big deal, and I think that less CC like that and more CC like Briggs Bash, where it's not always online, but when it is, you have to be aware of it, or just things along those lines. I think that's kind of the direction that I would like to see it go. But let's come back around to Brig.
Hmm.
Cassidy's grenade also got nerfed. What do you think about that?
I think it's fine because I think maybe if the nade worked as intended, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But just because of like, I feel like it chases you around so far. I've seen that nade like do crazy things. Like it does like backflips in the air before it lands on somebody. Um, I don't know. I
Oh,
don't know if it was. It has to be some sort of bug. And then like you just get body shot and you die. Um, I'm happy that they tuned it back just because of how ridiculous it felt. Like it was like a magnet to your forehead across the map and then it get you. Um I will say that like Cass is just strong right now, and I mean we talked about that. Like after his changes he was just going to be strong, and he
I
was
told you.
he was at the point where if you didn't really run him, like Sombra Tracer is being played a lot right now, and so Cass kind of found his like niche, and like he can help your backline be stronger and kind of deal with the flankers, and he has the big nade to kind of like scare them off, right? Like it's really scary for Tracer because I think that's just a one shot for her. Um,
Hmm.
so tuning it down a little, I think alleviates some of that pain from Tracer players, but it doesn't make him bad because he still has his damage and he still has the nade still does a decent amount. It's just not going to like one shot you. So I think
Hmm.
he's still pretty strong. It didn't make him bad. It just kind of opened it up to, I think, the DPS that people are playing right now is like Sombra Tracer and then a little bit of Hanzo, or like some Hanzo, some Cass, and then I've seen some Soj. So it's kind of like it's a little bit more versatile now that Cass has been nerfed a little bit. I think before it was like you're playing Cass unless otherwise, but well,
Right.
most of the time.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, to be completely frank, I feel like Cassidy's grenade works for everybody except for me. I don't know what it is, but this is like literally if you watch me play Cass on stream, you can see it in the footage, and even my chat tells me it's like literally, okay, I want to hit the Sigma standing right in front of me with my magnetic grenade, so line it up, okay. I throw it and it just goes like whoop onto the floor, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's my fault. Skill issue, I guess, right? It's like I don't know what it is, dude. I can't get this ability to work right for
Your
me.
Cass
But
forgot to put magnets in it, I guess.
yeah, and he also decided to throw it like a pulse bomb. It's just like a little wimpy toss, man. But anyway, um, yeah, exactly. It's like you know what I mean. But
Get away.
anyway, so yeah, exactly. Flashbang, no. But like, it's like, yeah, I totally understand why people wanted it nerf. I get not wanting a free headshot, and I do think that somehow it was even worse than the old flashbangs
I
from with the
know.
stun. It's like when I first read it on paper, right? And usually I'm pretty good at picking stuff up on paper that people are like, oh, that's not a big deal, right? Or like, oh, that's like I don't. Anyway, I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff usually, and even that went over my head. I was like, "Oh, that's an
Yeah.
okay change. It's not going to be messed up." And then in practice, it's like, "Wow, this thing's fucking annoying." You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So definitely understand the changes on that. Quick little thing to touch on: EMP now disables Blizzard. Oh, I don't know why that change was done, but okay, I guess. I mean, I think it shouldn't disable Blizzard. Doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, but okay, fine, right? Let's just nerf May more. Um, that I can get behind. But so the sleep dart nerf happened. Really happy with that change. I know you probably aren't as an auto main,
No,
but
like so I thought it was going to be like a huge like detriment to, because Ana comps are being played pretty heavily right now, right? Like
mhm,
she's being played a lot.
mhm,
And I thought it was going to be like kind of like a make it or break it thing because like on a lot of times your sleep darts aren't going on anybody else except for the tank. Like that is the most impactful sleep that you can have in fights, right? If a ram is running at you with Nemesis, you can just beep and then he's gone and you waste his whole nem and you
Hmm.
run away, right? Or
Hmm.
like if a monkey's primaling, you just bop him and then you run away, right? And you waste
Hmm.
his primal. But honestly, like in gameplay wise, it is noticeable. But it's not so much that if I sleep a primal monkey, okay, I'm still gonna die. It's more like it gives me time to kind of like get away and then deal with the rest of the primal that's still coming. So it doesn't like it's noticeable, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't think it's going to like just knock her out of the meta. But
Hmm.
I do like the fact that it's only a nerf for tanks, right? So it's still, rewarding you for hitting those like skill shots on like, Nano
Like a
Blade.
bleeding Genji.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
a tracer who's like bothering you or something like that. So I think that was like a smart decision. And it kind of goes with their whole thing of like tanks, you know, wanting to like make them more like CC resistant. So I don't think it's a bad change. I think it's honestly really healthy for the game, and it feels good. And I'm sure it feels good for the tank players.
Yeah. Now if they just reduce the power of anti, maybe I'll be okay with Ana conceptually. Um, but yeah, no, like I definitely agree with everything you said. I mean, it definitely makes a lot of sense. I think it's a great change. It's very healthy, and it's not overdoing it to where sleep
Hmm.
dart now feels useless. I mean, it's still a really rewarding and strong ability. So definitely a good change in my book. The Brigida ult change.
Hmm.
So briefly talked about this. This was a lot of changes. They made the shield bigger, more healthy. It now stuns up to really as many people as there are on the screen when you bash. I mean, pretty hefty changes to Briggs Ultimate. I I kind of like it. I really think it's good. I when I first read it, I didn't think it'd be as strong as I would have liked for a Brig ult rework. But I think it's still solid. Really, I do.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
So I've seen Brig run a lot in scrims since the changes came out, and she was okay, kind of like before the patch. But her ult right now is bugged, so I think it's kind of hard to get like a full read on it. Like she's not getting as much armor out of Rally that she's meant to get. I think it's like
Oh,
something like
really? Okay.
she's only getting like half the amount of like armor she's meant to get. And that
Hmm.
ult, it kind of seems like she gets blown up a lot faster than previous Rally. Like you can't just like pop it and then run in like a maniac like you could
Hmm.
before, and like
Sure.
the raid boss people would call her, like she's not a raid boss
Hmm.
anymore. um
Which is
the
good.
the
Like,
bigger
sorry, go
thing
ahead.
is it's more of like a defensive ult, which is what
Hmm.
we're seeing with a lot of like monkey comps being run,
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
she stands on top of her Ana, she whip shots the monkey away, whatever. But now it's more like, okay, if they're primaling or if they're doing something scary, right? Now she can pop her ult and like bash it, and then you guys can get away. It's more like a defensive thing, kind of how like Nano right now is being used as a more like defensive ult as well. So it's just interesting to see how that's kind of going, instead of being this crazy
Yeah.
ult where it's like, okay, everybody go, we're going in, raid boss, raid boss. It's now more like, okay, I can keep you alive. Let's live, let's chill. Um,
Yeah. 100%.
yeah.
And talking about Nano, that's another thing I really wish was different about Ana. We're gonna go to the next change here in a second. But one other thing I really wish was different about Ana. I wish they just reverted the burst heal aspect of Nano. I
No.
miss watching people Nano someone who was 5 HP on accident and then they just die immediately. I think that was like an actual thing you had to be aware of. Like you had to like if you wanted to Nano someone like a blading Genji, right? You had to do it before he took a bunch of damage. It wasn't like, oh, my Genji just dashed into the middle of their team, got hit with a bunch of cooldowns. You should Nano him and bail him out entirely, right? The
Yeah.
other team has no
Honestly,
cooldown.
it should be on release Nano, where they do 100% more damage and they get a speed increase. I think they should
You're
give
just saying
that
that because you're
back.
main Ana. You're saying that because you're main Ana. Honestly, I wouldn't mind it if they reduced the I
Bring
don't know,
back
dude. There's a
Beyblade.
lot of stuff I really wish was different. I wish the damage reduction was a little bit different. I wish the burst
Do
heal was
you
different.
do you remember when Ryan's would get Nano when Anna first came out and it was like a
Mhm.
crazy psychopath chasing you
It
down
was unstoppable. Yes, it was
faster than like
unstoppable.
Lucio's speed boost?
Yeah, it was unstoppable, man. And the Ryans always would do the like giga spin. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That was
And they're
always a big
blue.
thing too.
And they're just this blue
Hmm.
spinning whirlwind coming at you and you're like,
Yep. 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 But anyway, okay. Next changes. This is actually it's a bigger change than the change itself, right? They reverted what they did to Mercy, right?
thank God.
And I think that that is a sign of something more than just reverting Mercy. It's the first time in my memory that Blizzard has ever just been like, yeah, maybe that change wasn't good. We're just gonna revert it, right? I can't. If I think really hard, I can't think of a single time where Blizzard pushed a change out to live and then reverted it so quickly
Yeah, I can't
on
either.
any hero, right? It's always like, oh, well, instead of reverting that change, we're going to make all these other random changes that address it, and then now we have a bunch of other problems, right? This is the first time I can think of where Blizzard was like, maybe we weren't right on that one, and they brought everything back. They went
Mm-hmm.
backwards, which I think is like, if nothing else, that's a huge sign that at least the developers do have the capacity to admit that they're wrong about a hero change, and that could mean really good things going forward, right? Because we might not have to deal with, oh, well, we really would like immortality changed. Let's get that changed, and then it doesn't happen for 2 years, right? Stuff like that. It's I think that reversion of Mercy is a bigger deal than just the change itself because I
Yeah.
think it shows the developers are improving, right? It's not the same situation we've been dealing with for years, and that's kind of how Overwatch 2 has been, in my opinion. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. The only thing now is I'm dealing with GM1 Mercy players who are still playing Mercy and she's just not like the healing increase was so good and now she's just so mid again. Oh well. What can you do?
Oh well,
Oh
exactly.
well. I'll take it. I'll take the hit to my ranked games if it means Mercy's bad again.
Wow, this is rich coming from someone who used to play strictly Mercy
Hey,
only.
I've
Just
learned,
throwing
I've
out there.
grown, and I've improved. Okay.
Would you say that that's a miracle, or?
It might be. It might be a miracle.
And the final thing was the Mora buff, right? Let's quickly touch on that because we're
Hmm.
about hitting wrap up time. The Mora buff, they gave her Fade and Coalescence. Have
Yeah,
you been seeing more
so
Mora?
yes, she is actually being played in Overwatch League a little bit with Moira Kiriko against the like monkey Sombra Tracer
Hmm.
comps. Just because she can just live forever. You know, she doesn't have to worry about getting her coal canceled. She's very good at she's always notoriously been all right into Sombra because she can spy check the Sombra, right?
Hmm.
She could just
Hmm.
claw everywhere and as soon
And
as
she can
Sombra tries to go for something, she interrupts the hacks, right? So
and she can fade out of EMP and all that. I mean, she has like lots of self sustain as well.
right.
So definitely, yeah.
So people are, you know, messing around with playing like this like super survivable backline, which is, you know, the Moira Kiriko, and just kind of like running it down, I would imagine. I have not played against it. I have not seen it, but I've heard about it. So we'll see. We'll see if that ends up developing any further. But I mean, uh Moira's the character I ended up, you know, in the meta where I won open division and played in contenders trials. So like I'm all for it. I mean, bring me back my girl. I've only ever played her times where she's strictly been meta, and I've enjoyed it every time.
She's actually like she does make some pretty fun metas because they're always like very fast and very
Yeah,
like everyone's self-sustaining. So yeah, that's definitely true.
yeah.
But yeah, those are all the changes that have happened this week. We talked about a lot of stuff. I mean, that was a pretty densely densely packed episode. I'm very happy to be doing this again. As you know, I have been very busy, but I'm super stoked to be back in the podcast and actually, you know, doing this
Yeah.
consistently. So I do hope you guys enjoyed. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Aramori. I hope you had a good time too. And next week, I do have a topic I want to talk about. I really want to talk about what the easiest role in Overwatch is, and
Yeah, I
why.
do too, because I think I disagree with you. So we'll have to bring
Mm,
our debate hats and go
yeah.
head to head.
So basically, next episode it's gonna be me explaining why tank is the easiest and you being wrong. That's gonna be the topic
Yeah,
of
we'll
discussion.
see. We'll see, buddy. We'll see.
Mm, I've never been wrong before, so. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to follow Prediction for more. And make sure you follow us. Our Twitters are down below. My Twitter is kind of a haven for just doing whatever I want. I don't, it's there. You can follow me on it. I don't really post on it.
I post.
Aramori has
You
a
can
much
follow
more
me.
professional, exactly, much more professional, much more relevant Twitter to you. But that's it for today, guys. We will be back on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 4 p.m. Eastern next week. Sorry, I have someone making a bunch of noise over here. But that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.